fast and died and was gathered to his people. They dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go toward Assyria. He died in the presence of all his brethren. This is the genealogy of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, his wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Syrian. Now Isaac pleaded with the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his plea, and Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If all is well, why am I like this?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb. Two people shall be separated from your body. One people shall be..."
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Susan, and for the next half hour, I'll be reading from the February 5th, 2026 issue of the Challenger Community News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And this is the 100th anniversary of Black History Month, celebrating our legacy. For a century, Black history has grown because we made it grow in our homes, our schools, our streets, and our spirits. The next 100 years begin with us choosing together what we uplift, what we protect, and what we pass on. This year, 2026, marks 100 years of national commemorations of Black History Month. Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson, George Cleveland Hall, William B. Hartgrove, Jesse E. Moreland, Alexander Jackson, and James E. Stamps institutionalized the teaching, study, dissemination, and commemoration of Black history when they founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, known as the ASNLH, and that was on September 9th, 1915. In 1925, when Dr. Carter G. Woodson planned the inaugural week-long observance of Black history, he could hardly have anticipated the imprint he would leave on the world. From Negro History Week to Black History Month, the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History has carried forth the tradition, and the observances have become part of the woven fabric of American culture and increasingly the global community. A century of Black history commemorations is the theme of this year's 100th Black History Anniversary. The founders of Black History Month urge us to explore the impact and meaning of Black history and how it impacts the status of Black people in the modern world. This year, the nation is also celebrating the 250th anniversary of United States independence, and it is important to tell not only an inclusive history, but an accurate one. We have never had more need to examine the role of Black History Month than we do when forces weary of democracy seek to use legislative means and book bans to erase and or whitewash Black history from America's schools and public culture. Black history's value is not in its contributions to mainstream historical narratives, but its renaissance and impact in the lives of Black people. Next, in Health Matters, Roswell Park, meet the team. Nakia Clark Robinson. In another life, Nakia Clark Robinson might have been a teacher following in her mother's footsteps. Instead, with a degree in social sciences from the State University of New York at Buffalo, she used her drive to educate and a passion for outreach to become a director of community outreach and engagement at Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center. She joined Roswell Park as part of the Institutional Review Board as an assistant, reviewing research protocols after a 3-year grant-funded position with the Buffalo Urban League. Stepping into outreach when Roswell opened the new Office of Cancer Health Disparities Research, Clark Robinson saw an opportunity to bring together everything she was passionate about and all she had learned. The need to bring more voices from underserved communities into conversations about health care, cancer research, and prevention. The mission of the new office was to provide access, health equality, information, and resources to all the underserved populations in Western New York. And I knew that's what I wanted to do, she says. Now I had the freedom, and it was my job duty and responsibility to go out in the community and educate people about the importance of screening and talk about cancer and how it affects not only the Black population, but the Hispanic, Latino, the Indigenous, every population that we consider underrepresented in the healthcare system, and then start to build partnerships. We need to have the community as a partner to get this work done, she says. The new venture made an immediate difference, Clark says. It was wonderful. That's when we really started to see our outreach take off. More people from minority communities were being educated about screening and services at Roswell Park, and screening rates were starting to increase. People were learning more about cancer. Referrals were happening, and people weren't as afraid to come in. Even the researchers and the scientists got excited about working in the community, asking how their expertise could help lower cancer rates in the areas we were focused on. As a cancer center, we also started paying more attention to the social factors that affect health. Building relationships in diverse communities. Now, as one of the directors who works in the Community Outreach and Engagement Center at 907 Michigan, Clark is often meeting with people from Buffalo's churches, community-based organizations, and civil groups, building networks that help educate people about cancer and take an action. She also aims to help people feel empowered to join the fight against cancer through her ICAN program, which stands for Identify Community Action Next Steps. Now in her 40s, the education she helps provide is more personal. When I started talking about cancer screening, I wasn't even old enough to get a mammogram. I'm old enough now to get all of the cancer screenings. I have family members, friends, and loved ones that have passed after being diagnosed with cancer. I have 2 college-aged sons that I'm making it a point to talk about reducing their health risks for cancer, reminding them of all the things that I would talk about in the community. Between the opportunities for outreach and education at 907 Michigan, efforts to meet with people in Niagara Falls and throughout Western New York, Clark says it's easy to see these efforts are paying off and resulting in earlier diagnoses and more trust within historically underserved communities and populations at Roswell Park. We can go into churches, we can go into community centers, and we can go into our federally qualified health centers, and people welcome us, she says. They want to partner with us. There's not a day that goes by without a community member using the space at 907 Michigan, talking to me, one of our patient navigators, or another COE team member looking for a way to become more involved with Roswell Park's mission. Clark Robinson remains focused on expanding access to research, both for community members and providing opportunities for survivors and caregivers whose lives have to share their stories with Roswell Park through the Patient and Community Research Advisory Program called ROCK STARS. As we continue to advance our impact on cancer in our community, we need to focus more on research because that's what will ultimately cure cancer. Next in my career, I want to highlight the importance of research and create space for survivors in underrepresented communities. And by sharing their stories and shining a light on their experiences, we can inspire others in ways I never could alone. Next, honoring Buffalo's education heroes. Nomination deadline has been extended. Nominations are now open until February 14th for the 7th Annual Excellence in Education Awards, hosted by Friends for a Better Buffalo. This is Buffalo's premier in-person and televised celebration honoring the outstanding educators and school staff who make a lasting impact on students across the city of Buffalo. From teachers and principals to counselors, coaches, and support staff, that would be like teacher aides, cafeteria security, this prestigious community-driven awards program recognizes those who go above and beyond to inspire, lead, and change lives every day. The 2026 event will take place at Buffalo State University Arts Center Community. Community members are encouraged to nominate deserving individuals before the February 14th deadline by scanning the QR code or going to www.friendsforabetterbuffalo.com. Then we also have a community access service. Their annual CAS Day is a celebration in honor of the work they do to empower communities of color. Falling on Black HIV and AIDS Awareness Day. The event will be celebrated, or it was celebrated, February 6th at their new facility at 3070 Bailey Avenue. Rapid HIV testing, free condoms, and free food and drinks, music, and raffles were there on that day. Also, we have a civil service career fair. A civil service career fair will be held from 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. on Wednesday, February 18th, at the University at Buffalo's Educational Opportunity Center, located at 555 Ellicott Street. The event is being hosted by the Office of Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples Stokes, the New York State Department of Civil Service, New York State Department of Labor, and the University at Buffalo's Educational Opportunity Center. An aging workforce and a dip in employment during the COVID years has created around 10,000 job openings in the New York State Civil Service Department, with over 20 state departments will be on site to review resumes and engage with the candidates. New York state agencies are hiring for thousands of critical positions open across the state. To help agencies fill these positions, the Department of Civil Service has developed the New York Hiring for Emergency Limited Placement Statewide, known as New York Helps, that program. And this program streamlines the appointment process to allow state agencies to hire diverse, qualified, permanent employees quickly and without the civil service examinations. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Challenger Community News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. And now, under Rewind, Unforgettable Roots Culture Music by E. Rewind. Unforgettable, that's what we are. Our ancestors from the motherland to the Americas. Let us run the film back to the beginning of our musical history from then to the present. Our roots in the beginning. The most beautiful and important thing a people can do is create an art form. An art form can influence your thinking, your feeling, the way you dress, the way you walk, how you talk, and what you do with yourself. It has the power because it contains structure, development, contrast, emotion, and soul. We shall never forget. The purpose of this column is to awaken and re-inspire our contributions. In the beginning, the continent of Africa was named by our ancestors Al-Kabulan, which stands for the Garden of Eden, land of Ham and Ethiopia, the entire continent. Multidimensional. This is a term I will use often, which means using different routes but ending up at the same destination. Spirits, spirituals. How do you determine a spirit? A spirit is determined in which the body it dwells in portrays his or her action. The main ingredient of our music is the African origins and character that's well rooted. Not only did Africans bring song and dance, but also brought reconstructed musical instruments, played in Africa, such as the banjo, the balafon, which is the xylophone, the bow used on string instruments, flutes, the elephant tusk or a horn, the clarinet, and trumpets made of wood and ivory, bagpipes going, rattles, castanets, the quill, the piano thumb, and, of course, the drum, just to name a few. Soul music, a form of deep expression that has its roots in Africa. Soul serenade, soul twist, soul power, soul brother, soul sister, soul food, soul train. Look at that train. The performance practices, melodies, rhythms, and static musical practice of today. As Black Americans, we are only a mirror of the practices of our African forefathers and mothers. The bottom line is, it is a great culture, whether you call yourself Africans, African Americans, Black, Colored, Negro, whichever terminology you choose, it still comes out the same culture. You see, a leopard can't change its spots even if it wanted to. Growing up, I saw a movie called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, starring the late, great Sidney Poitier. His character was asked a question in the movies by the bride's father, portrayed by Spencer Tracy. The question was, do you know how to do the Watusi? Sidney's character replied and said, I am the Watusi. Unforgettable, that's what you are. And next, under voices, the path to generational wealth is not through receiving grants. I have been observing the interaction and community activities that are being scheduled and conducted by members of the Bangladesh or Bengali community. Many of these events take place in public spaces such as the Buffalo Erie County Public Library and in town halls or community centers in Cheektowaga and Amherst. Up to now, the majority of these meetings have dealt with job or employment opportunities where prospective employers can recruit job applicants on site. Sometimes there are over 50 employment tables set up and manned by many of the banks, restaurants, healthcare agencies, and food industries that already employ many longtime residents in our community. I want to make it clear that although these job fairs are implemented by the Bangladesh community leaders, any person in the Western New York area is welcome to attend and hopefully be hired by one of the many companies and agencies looking for good and reliable job seekers. There used to be a time when Black politicians and community leaders held similar job fairs in Eastside community centers to give our underemployed and underpaid Black teenagers and young adults an opportunity to become gainfully employed in a city, that is, through inaction and disinterest, gentrifying and pushing them away from their homes and communities. Let me make it clear, I am not blaming or finding fault for what other communities or ethnic groups are doing. I am simply documenting what they are doing to empower their cultural footprints by taking advantage of all economic opportunities and also by creating avenues for job creation, opening new businesses, and uniting with other like-minded individuals to pool resources that can be used to finance these neighborhood-driven initiatives. Once upon a time, that entrepreneurial self-help and community partnering of working together with the business community and the number of jobless young black men were something that gave many in the community renewed hope that we were making waves to solve issues that the African American community has dealt with ever since street corner pharmacies replaced manufacturing companies as main employers in our inner city youth during the deadly and turbulent years of the 1970s, 1980s, and the 1990s. Over the past several years, since the massacre at Tops Market, tens of millions of dollars have come to our community to address the effect of the loss of 10 of our beloved community members who were slain. And now, as one travels along Jefferson Avenue, the same unpaved street, cracked sidewalks, and desolate and empty buildings bear witness to the fact that the money that was donated to improve the street and the surrounding neighborhoods was distributed in the form of grants to the selected few. That $10 million could have fixed a lot of potholes or put new roofs and windows on some of the low-income homeowners and qualifying buildings on Jefferson Avenue. But instead of that happening, multiple nonprofits, some of whom were unknown or not known with a historical service delivery background, wound up with money for upstarts and salaries to push a delivery of service that most people knew little to nothing about. We will never regain ownership of our commercial districts and the community's financial resources that are driven by our collective monies if we have our hands out for grants and a funding source that may not be available to us. In the future, grants are useful for helping people in need, and I am grateful for that. But if we want to make sure we have a house, a business, or an inheritance to pass along to our descendants, we had better start focusing on opening our own stores and patronizing other stores and businesses in our cultural community now before it becomes too late. Most of the other ethnic groups or communities in Buffalo have a head start on laying the groundwork for their members to move forward, pooling resources and investing in home ownership as sure ways to ensure that their heirs and future generations will be taken care of. It is about time we African Americans start that generational wealth dialogue real soon. This writer also believes that the word reparations should be a part of that conversation. And this article was written by Betty Jean Grant. And briefly, calendar of events, just reminding everyone on Wednesday, February 18th, Hustle for Health line dance fitness classes for seniors 55 and over at the Gloria J. Parks Center, 3242 Main Street. And that's with Sonia Mizwizi Collins, and that's from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the February 5th, 2026 issue of the Challenger Community News. We read from the Challenger Community News every Saturday at 8:30. Your reader has been Susan, and thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of the Batavia Daily News. Following that at 10 o'clock is the East Aurora Advertiser, and at 11 we have the Niagara Gazette. Stay with us for these readings and more throughout the day. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings of printed matter to our listeners who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service has brought nearly 40 years and more than 300,000 hours of radio readings to those without sight. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Claudia, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service from February 11th. Leroy, CSD, dismisses claim of racially hostile classroom lesson. NYCLU criticizes district in aftermath of sharecropping activity. Leroy, the New York Civil Liberties Union criticized Leroy Central School District on Monday for its handling of an investigation into a class activity in which students were assigned to play the role of sharecroppers on a plantation. The activity, which was led by a supervised SUNY Geneseo student teacher,